Today, we are going to recap a 2004 Hong Kong movie starring Jackie Chan called New Police Story. It's an action-packed movie about a washed-up super cop who seeks redemption. If you like the movie, please leave a comment below and remember to like and subscribe so I can continue to introduce you to more of my favorite movies. Spoilers ahead. Thank you for tuning in and have a great time. The film kicks off against the stunning Hong Kong city skyline, introducing our main character, Chan Kwok-wing, a Hong Kong police inspector who's drowning his sorrows in alcohol. He collapses in an alley, where a stranger discovers him. Flashing back a year, we witness a high-stakes hostage situation. The culprit claims he was swindled by loan sharks and demands restitution. However, Wing, disguised as a cameraman, intervenes, leading to a struggle. In the midst of the chaos, Wing takes a bullet to the chest and the hostage is whisked away by two cops. The tension escalates as they fight over a grenade. Amid the struggle, Wing yells at his team to open a manhole cover. He manages to throw the grenade just in time for it to explode. Wing revealed he was wearing a bulletproof vest, saving him from the gunshot. The next day, Wing debriefs his team while his fiancée mocks his movement from behind. He didn't notice, so the team giggles. After the session, he and his fiancée Ho Yi head out to celebrate. That night, a group of thugs, dressed as low-budget supervillains, sit on top of a building. They shockingly drop a hostage, using his body attached to a rope to crash into a bank window. The thugs then bungee jump into the bank, forcing the hostage to open the vault. They force the hostage to call the police and use him as bait. They all get into position, and when the officers arrive, the low-budget supervillains unleash heavy fire, making bets on the number of cops they can take down while filming the whole thing. Seriously, these TikTok influencers are going overboard for social media content. After all the police were gunned down, they all laughed hysterically like a generic version of Joker. More police arrive, and they make a run for it. One of them drops her loot bag and gets caught by two police. One of the police unmasks her and gets a look at her face, but her friends snipe one of them, and she manages to fire a shot and get away. They make it to their hideout and divide the money by the number of police they killed, injured, and police cars they damaged like some twisted real-life video game. Wing publicly challenges the low-budget supervillains and promises they will be arrested within 3 hours, which infuriates them. Days later, Wing and his crew follow a lead to their hideout, overly confident and underestimating them. The warehouse is rigged with various traps along with surveillance cameras which track their every move. They jam the police communication system and pick them off one by one. As the officers persist, the burglars continue to toy with them, separating and leading them into more traps. Despite the danger, the cops fall prey to the thieves' psychological games. Wing becomes the ultimate target, and they use footage of a game as a mind-twisting tactic, intensifying the suspense and danger. Wing enters a vast hall and discovers his men suspended in the air. The low-budget supervillains emerge, expressing their intense hatred for law enforcement and forcing him to play their sadistic games to save his men. The first challenge unfolds as a gun assembly face-off between the leader and Wing. The pressure intensifies for Wing as he hears his squad's desperate cries for help, causing him to lose crucial moments during the challenge and ultimately leading the thugs to drop two of Wing's men to the floor. One of the low-budget's villain challenge Wing to defeat him within a tight 20-second limit. Once again, the pressure gets to Wing, causing him to lose focus and get knocked back, resulting in the loss of two more men. The leader taunts Wing as he pleads for the release of his men. Mockingly, the leader reminds Wing of the 3-hour arrest promise. In desperation, Wing gets down on his knees to beg, and the leader, reveling in the moment, grants him another chance. He will fight again with the 20-second limit. In the subsequent attempt, Wing performs considerably better. Unfortunately, he exceeds the 20-second limit by 3 seconds, resulting in the loss of 3 more men. Wing goes batshit crazy, relentlessly shooting at all the low-budget villains, although somehow missing all of them. Wonder why he didn't just do that earlier. The thugs light the rope on fire for the last officer, who happens to be Wing's brother-in-law. Wing rushes to save him, but his brother-in-law informs him of a nearby bomb that is about to detonate. He manages to grab the rope and soften the fall and use a dolly to push the men out of the building. Unfortunately, none of his men made it. In the aftermath, the squad receives a hero's funeral, but Wing is left deeply traumatized by the harrowing experience. Overwhelmed by guilt, he isolates himself, spending most of his time at home and attempting to drown his pain in alcohol. He distances himself from friends, family, and even his fiancée, feeling a heavy responsibility for the death of all his men. The weight of the tragedy leads him to question whether he should proceed with his marriage, especially given that his fiancée's brother died in his arms. Wing takes a 1-year leave. As we return to the present, the start of the movie, we find Wing drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Encountering a duo of thieves, he becomes an easy target, getting overpowered and having his wallet stolen. Wing passes out in an alleyway, only to be approached by the mysterious guy in the trench coat, who returns his wallet and lends a helping hand. The next day, Wing wakes up in his apartment to find a stranger, Frank Shin, a junior detective assigned from another department to assist him with the masked burglar case. Frank informs Wing that his 1-year leave has been cut short, and the police urgently need his expertise. However, Wing remains uninterested. Frank mentions the masked burglars are still at large and treat Wing and his squad as a video game. This infuriates Wing, leading him to kick out Frank. Later at the bar, Wing receives a call from Frank, who claims that his girlfriend is in danger and urgently needs his help. It's their anniversary, and Frank aims to bring the couple back together. Wing rushes to his girlfriend's apartment. Upon entering, there's an awkward pause as it's been a while since they last talked. Frank attempts to ease the tension by presenting a cake, claiming Wing asked him to buy it for her, although Wing hadn't made such a request. After the awkward pause, Wing and his girlfriend finally cheer up and sit down for dinner. They start catching up, and during the conversation, Wing apologizes for leaving her in the dark and for her brother death. She reassures him, stating that it's not his fault, and expresses her unconditional support. However, the weight of guilt becomes too much for Wing, and he abruptly leaves, still blaming himself. Later, Frank finds Wing in a bar and attempts to persuade him to return to the case, but Wing remains uninterested and departs. Frank follows him, and they unexpectedly encounter the two thieves from earlier. In the ensuing confrontation, Frank fights both guys, with one managing to escape. Wing got into a trance but snaps out of it and catches one of the thieves. The next day, Frank is seen turning the thieves in. Meanwhile, the commander approaches Wing and insults him, labeling him a drunken failure. Frank steps in to defend Wing, leading to a conversation about the case and a bet. The commander challenges Wing to catch the masked thieves before him, promising a public apology if successful and resignation if not. Frank accepts on Wing's behalf. Outside, Wing confronts Frank, questioning the motivation behind the determination to solve the case. Frank discloses that he is Kwan's brother, a member of Wing's squad, and is seeking vengeance for him. We now shift to Joe, the leader of the masked thieves. We learn that his father is the police commissioner, a figure who consistently gives Joe a hard time, pushing him to conform to his expectations. His mother comforts him by giving him cash, which infuriated Joe, who discards the cash. The constant torment from his father forms the foundation of Joe's deep-seated hatred for law enforcement. Meanwhile, Wing and Frank visit Sam's club, the officer who unmasked the girl a year ago. The club staff refuses to cooperate, leading to a physical altercation that forces Wing and Frank to fight them off. Wing handles most of the adversaries, while Frank, in his usual fashion, plays around and doesn't contribute much. The confrontation ends when Sam intervenes. Overwhelmed with guilt, Sam reveals finding a watch left behind by the girl during their encounter. They trace the watch to a rooftop X-game party, an extreme sport gathering, where Wing and Frank head next. At the party, Wing identifies one of the watches as belonging to the red-haired guy, confirming his involvement. However, the commander interrupts, bringing Sam to identify the girl. Before Sam can point her out, the red-haired guy shoots him, attempting to flee. In the chaos, a female gang member is shot in the neck. Sam, on the verge of death, discloses that he was bribed by the low-budget villains, providing fake information to lure Wing and his squad into a trap. The revelation shocks Wing and the commander. Wing and Frank then pursue the red-haired guy while the girl manages to escape in a van. The chase unfolds across Hong Kong, with Wing and Frank somehow keeping up with the red-haired guy on his bicycle. The pursuit takes a chaotic turn when the red-haired guy crashes, injuring himself. In desperation, he shoots at a bus, causing the driver to lose control. Frank and Wing redirect their efforts to stop the bus after causing havoc through the city. Despite their efforts, the red-haired guy manages to escape, leaving Wing and Frank to confront the aftermath of the destructive chase. Later, the commissioner approaches Wing and reprimands him for the city damage caused by the chase. He questions why Wing returned while on suspension, and Wing explains that his leave was reduced, claiming he was assigned a partner by the commissioner himself. To his surprise, the commissioner denies authorizing such a partnership, prompting Wing to question Frank's true identity. Wing interrupts Frank's dinner to confront him, demanding the truth. Frank confesses that he's not a police officer nor is he Kwan's brother. He explains his desire to help was inspired by a kind police officer who assisted him when he lost his father. Wing got angry and called him a liar, but they eventually reconcile, agreeing to apprehend the low-budget villains together. As they investigate the thieves' backgrounds, Wing and Frank discover that they are rich, spoiled kids with influential parents who can shield them from consequences. The gang's hideout reveals the deteriorating situation, with Joe refusing to take a bleeding girl to the hospital, opting to shoot her to avoid exposure. The duo begins tailing Joe, who is already onto them. Joe heads to Wing's girlfriend's apartment, forcing Wing to reveal his cover. A call from Joe informs Wing that he sent his girlfriend to the police station with plans to blow it up. En route, their car is sabotaged by a goon, setting off a chain of events leading to a bomb threat. Joe traps Wing's girlfriend with a time bomb, and Wing and Frank manage to evacuate and defuse the bomb. However, upon exiting, the bomb detonates, injuring Wing's girlfriend critically. Frank is jailed for impersonation, aiding Wing, and disobeying orders. Joe and his gang visit them in jail, revealing plans for another bank robbery. This motivates Wing and Frank to break out of jail. Utilizing the help of their police officers' friends in a comedic manner, they manage to escape and head to an arcade, where they uncover a potential clue. Realizing Joe plans to rob the Bank of Hong Kong, they secretly evacuate civilians while bringing in the parents of the gang members to encourage surrender. Despite panic among Joe's crew, one member named Max decides to abandon his post, driven by shame and concern for his parents' safety. This triggers Joe to shoot Max in front of his parents. Wing and Frank pursue Joe and his two remaining members. Frank incapacitates the red-haired guy by shooting his leg, while Wing challenges Tintin, another low-budget supervillain, to a rematch in a children's play area. With no time limit or pressure, Wing easily defeats Tintin. Shortly after, Joe pursues Frank, unleashing a barrage of gunfire. In the crossfire, Tintin takes a hit in the chest, collapsing to the floor. As reinforcements arrive, Joe follows Frank to the roof. The reinforcements, unfamiliar with Wing, point their guns at him. Tintin, initially poised to shoot Wing, drops the gun when he realizes Wing is trying to save him by asking the officer to get him medical help. Wing makes it to the roof and finds Joe holding Frank hostage. Frank is tied up and dropped to the side of the building bound to a rope. Joe tells him that he doesn't care anymore since his cover is already blown. He says that his father is the reason he did all of this and is willing to die before he even goes back. Wing convinces Joe to play the gun assembly game with him again, this time using Frank as a hostage. Wing adjusts his technique and defeats Joe. Surrounding forces arrive, including Joe's father, who berates and insults him. Wing reveals that Joe doesn't truly hate cops but despises his father. Joe, overwhelmed, aims his emptied gun at Wing, prompting a sniper to shoot him down. Wing must save Frank, grabbing the rope and holding on to it. After an epic fall, Wing and Frank land safely on a cushion. The film fast-forwards as Wing proposes to his girlfriend, and the entire police force starts applauding. Frank uses the moment to exit, leaving his jacket behind. When Wing sees the jacket, he has a flashback to a previous crime scene involving a kid and his dad. Wing comforts the kid, gives him his jacket, and encourages him. The kid reveals his name is Frank Chin. That's the end of this recap. Thanks for watching and staying till the end. Please subscribe, comment, share, and like. See you at the next one.